everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Unlock Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson, and it is my absolute pleasure to have you guys on this show with me today. And boy, oh boy, I have got an amazing guest that I want to introduce to you. This person, I'm going to tell you that this person actually changed my life, and he changed my life and my business. There was something that he said on a stage in Phoenix about 18 months, 2 years ago, that completely changed the direction of my life and my business. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that later, but I wanted to publicly thank him for that. I didn't even know that that was the case. And I just want to make sure that he is publicly thanked for the difference that he made, not only to my life, and I know that he's making massive difference to loads of people's lives all over the world. Alex Charfen is one of my favorite people. I've been following him for quite some time. He's been a mentor of mine in a program that I did a couple of years ago. He's the creator of the entrepreneurial personality type. I've got the book in my hot little hand right now. He is also known as the go-to person for helping entrepreneurs ascend the Billionaire Code and understand how to plan strategically, which is something as entrepreneurs we absolutely need to know how to do. Alex is on this huge mission to empower entrepreneurs to grow and scale their businesses to make their greatest contribution. And I totally buy into that. So I want to say, welcome to the show, Alex, and thank you so much for your time in coming here and speaking to the people inside of the Success Secrets for Business, Family and Life group, and also for those that are listening to the Unlock with Tracy Wilson podcast. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Tracy. Thank you for such a gracious introduction. I really appreciate it.
Well, I meant every single word of it. It's true. So I want to, before we kind of get into this, I remember hearing your story about how you got started and all of this. Like, where did your entrepreneurial sort of drive and the opportunity for you to start your own business come from?
Tracy, I was always a very different kid, and I didn't get along very well socially with other kids, and I didn't get along very well with teachers. And that was the environment I was in. And so as a young kid, I didn't really know where I belonged in the world. And when I was very young, like 5 or 6 years old, we moved from Mexico to the United States, and my father started a business here in the US. And it did very well for the first year or two. And in fact, it did extraordinarily well. And then what ended up happening was the economics in the United States changed, and the business went from doing exceptionally well to he lost it. And I was there. I was very young, but very aware of what was going on. And I remember being at his factory the day that they were selling off all the pieces, and they had like the bankruptcy auction. But it wasn't really a bankruptcy. It was more like a store closing sale. And it affected me really deeply. And so I was about 8 years old when I started working with my dad. And my dad would go and because he lost that business, the business that he started afterwards was going to a swap meet, or here in the States, it's called either swap meet or a flea market, or like, an outdoor market. And we sold consumer electronics in that outdoor market. And even though now as an adult, I understand just how traumatic it was to have like a job at 8 years old and to work from 8 until about 13 with my dad. It also, things are such a double-edged sword. It was very difficult for me to do all of that, and it put crazy demands on me as a child. But also, when I started working with my dad, I found a place where I felt like I belonged. People would walk up to our table and they'd ask me questions, and I'd answer their questions, and they'd buy something, and it felt like I was successful. And, when you look at the world in general, it is very broad, and there's a lot of random things that happen. When you look at the world of business, a lot of the stuff that happens in the world is kind of trimmed away, and there's more focus, more congruency. It's like easier to understand. And so, I always tell people entrepreneurship kind of found me. I was destined to be an entrepreneur because I also have a hard time socially, but also have a hard time following other people's processes, other people's structures, other people's rules. I build a ton of my own, but it is a very heavy lift for me to do stuff that other people have put together. And so it's just kind of who I've always been.
Isn't that like that is so interesting to me because, you understood that you were a square peg in a round hole, so to speak, but you recognized that were the case. And then also realizing that, hey, I actually over here feels a little bit more comfortable than me being in that prickly spot over there where I do feel like a, square peg in a round hole. With a lot of entrepreneurs, so there's this there's this thing where a lot of people will, you're born to be an entrepreneur. And like you say, your entrepreneurship found you. But there are a lot of people who are in 9 to 5 jobs, maybe feeling a little bit like the way in which you've just described, and they don't actually realize it's because they're actually destined to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
In that, and I mean, I think this is really important because the world is changing significantly, where this opportunity for us to become entrepreneurs is just like cracked right open.
Crazy.
So for those people that are in those 9 to 5 jobs that are feeling a little bit like that, what would you recommend they do? Like, what advice would you give to them?
Tracy, it's interesting. I was just talking to a friend of mine a couple of days ago. His name's Govin Jeremiah, and he runs a software as a service company. We've been friends for about 10 years. And we were talking about how what is presented in the market right now is a generational entrepreneurship opportunity. It's like once in a generation does something like this come on. And then we were talking about it and we're like, no, it's not once in a generation. This is like once in a lifetime, or once in every century, where there's an opportunity presented that is this significant. And here's why I say that. When you look at the turmoil in the world and the challenges in the world, anytime there's turmoil and challenge, it creates massive entrepreneurial opportunity, because what we do as entrepreneurs is we identify the challenges, we identify the issues, we rise above them, figure out a way around them, get into momentum, and take the world with us. And that's what we've always done. And so right now, I think the opportunity is greater than it ever has been. And I have a different way of looking at, this question, like, am I an entrepreneur or not? Or should I do this or not? Here's how I look at it. If you're thinking about it, then the decision's already been made somewhere for you. The world's just waiting for you to catch up, or the universe is just waiting for you to catch up. If you moved in this direction, if you've thought about it, I for a while I was using this statement. I would say, if your mind is pregnant with the answer, should I? Then the answer is yes. But then a lot of people made fun of me because they thought my mind was pregnant. But what I meant by that was, if your mind has created the seed of opportunity saying you should move in this direction, my belief is it's just a matter of time until you have the motivation, the information, and the wherewithal to move it forward. And so I would do anything I could to accelerate that, because here's what I think really happens is, for people who are in that 9 to 5 job, or maybe for people who have had a career and now that career is shifting due to what's going on in the world, or for people who maybe are happy with where they are, but they're still wondering, can I do more? Should I do more? Is there more out there? My answer is, if you are moving in this direction, you should lean in as much as you can, because here's how I look at entrepreneurship. For us as human beings, I think that, we're all on a spectrum. And there's a small spectrum, a small percentage of the world of humans that get up every day and they go into the future, create a new reality. They come back to the present and demand it becomes real. And if you find yourself doing that, if you find yourself traveling into the future and saying, this is how this could be better, this is how this could be different, this is what I could do, even if you don't have the answers yet, then you have to admit you're part of that part of the population. You're one of us. And so my encouragement to you is to move in this direction as fast as you can, as definitively as you can, because the rest of your life is waiting for you. And right now, more than ever, the world needs entrepreneurs to do what we do, to figure out what's going on and to create solutions, because there is a massive amount of people in pain out there.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more that now is the time to do this. And I believe, like you do, that there is, this is one opportunity in our lifetime that we have got to do something and do it big and just take action. And like you say, if you're pregnant with that idea, just make the decision to do something about it. So I want to ask this question. You said one of us. So explain to me what you mean by one of us.
So the subtitle to my book is, it's the entrepreneurial personality type. And the subtitle is Your Guide to the Most Important and Most Misunderstood Population Among Us, or People Among Us. And the way I look at entrepreneurship, or the way that I look at entrepreneurs, is I actually believe that we are fundamentally different than the rest of the world. And that's why we have such a hard time fitting in. And that's why there's like, there's often incongruencies in how we appear in the world. We fit in really well over here, but we're a sore thumb over here. Or, in one class, we're doing so well that in another class, when we don't show up the same way, we're called, we're not applying ourselves. We're not doing what we should do. And the reality is, when I say one of us, I actually believe there is a subset of the human population that gets up every day and is driven by this thing called momentum. If you hear that word momentum and you feel it, like when I say it, I get chills every single time, especially when I'm sharing it with other people, because that word to me is not what I want. It's who I am. If I'm not in momentum, making things happen with the world following in my wake, making, the outcomes that I want in the world, helping people, making a contribution, I feel like I'm dying. And I feel like people like us need momentum, like the rest of the world needs oxygen. And the reason that I draw that definition and say one of us is because when you look at the rest of the world, they are not like us, and which is okay. It's okay. But you can't say that the rest of the world needs oxygen. I joke around here in the United States, there's a 1-hour TV show called Ice Road Truckers. Tracy, it's a show about people driving trucks over roads that are covered with ice. Mm-hmm. When I found out that was actually a show, the thoughts in my mind were, one, I could never be an ice road trucker because it would drive me crazy. I would be sitting in a truck all day, not doing anything stimulating. But then how can you actually sit and watch other people drive trucks on ice? So I use that as a comparison for the difference between entrepreneurs, because honestly, I can't even imagine sitting down for an hour to even investigate something like that. I've seen like 3 minutes of the show to prove it was real. And I'm like, okay, it really is people driving trucks on ice. There's no subplot. There's nothing else here. It's just what happened that day, driving a truck on ice. And that's a small example of how fundamentally different we are from other people, because most entrepreneurs have a hard time sitting down for an hour, much less watching a show like that. And so I think, we need to recognize that we are actually different, and our differences are what make us powerful and extraordinary, and what throughout human history have built the world around us. I often share with people, everything around you was created by an entrepreneur. On behalf of all of us, you're welcome, because that's what we do. We create the world around us, and the modern world was created by entrepreneurial human beings who saw a better future and made it happen in today.
Yep. And what an amazing, part of society to be involved with, right? That we have the power to do that. And for those that want to step into that world, well, it's ready for you. Yeah. So I want to, in your book, you talk about this concept of momentum, but there's like 3 different, states that you can be in. Let's talk about those 3 different states so that people can actually recognize, what state they're in and why they might be feeling like they're actually in momentum.
Yeah. So in order to talk about those 3 states, I think, first, I like to recognize that I think entrepreneurs in general have a hard time with feelings. We have a hard time with the discussions of feelings. In fact, it's funny, in our coaching membership, one of the things our coaches are not supposed to ask is, how are you feeling? Because entrepreneurs kind of bristle at that. Like, what do you mean, how am I feeling? Like, what are you trying to get me to say? And I think there's a reason. I don't think we process the world like the rest of the world does. I really think we have 3 states that we're in. The first one is when we're in momentum. And this is when I go out and speak, I ask, what does it feel like to be in momentum? And I get a variety of answers. I get, it feels incredible. It feels amazing. It feels like you're, like you can do anything, like you're on top of the world. But within the first 4 or 5 answers, somebody says it feels like you're alive. And I really do believe that for people like us, being in momentum is when we feel fully engaged and alive. And that is our birthright. That is who we are. And I think a lot of times we're talked out of it. In fact, you hear it in dialogues around us. You can get into flow state for a temporary period of time, or you're in the zone, but then you get out of the zone. And the way I look at it is, if we were given the ability to be in momentum, we were also given the ability to stay there. And I show entrepreneurs how to get into momentum and stay there and run their lives from that state of elevated thinking, from that state of elevated consciousness. Because when we're in momentum, 3 things clearly happen. 1, we are physiologically boosted. We can actually do more. We have more stamina. We can accomplish more. Tracy, would you agree?
Absolutely. Totally. You feel fulfilled and elated, and you want to do more, and you're excited about getting up and doing what you're meant to do.
And there's like a true, real physiological effect. It's almost measurable. Like you actually can do more in a day. The second thing that happens when we're in momentum, it's not just physiological, it's also psychological, cognitive. When we are in momentum, our thinking improves. We actually make decisions quicker. We can see more options. Our peripheral vision expands. We understand more about what's going on, and we start to lay the tracks for the future even faster. And then the third thing that happens when we're in this state of momentum is we're chemically boosted. Like, we all know the chemical high of momentum, and let's just call it what it is. It is a drug high. And when I ask people, like, what does it feel to be in momentum, depending on what jurisdiction of the United States I'm in, if I'm in some of the areas where there's a little bit more recreational usage, you get a lot of drug terms. I mean, somebody will say, I feel high. And the reason is that for people like us, momentum does have a drug-like effect on us. It actually ramps up our dopamine and our serotonin receptors. It starts pumping out more chemicals into our body that make us feel exceptionally good. And the rest of the world might say things like, oh, that guy's out of control, or that woman needs to slow down, or look, that person's like all manic and crazy. And to entrepreneurs, we just feel normal. That's when we feel fully engaged and ready to make things happen. Now, the second state, so that's in momentum. The second state is interesting. The second state is what I call facing resistance. When I look at the entrepreneurial personality type, every one of us has had that period in our lives where we are facing resistance. And it can happen for a day, but it can also happen for an extended period of time where you realize you don't have the resources you have. You don't have the experience you have. You don't have the knowledge you have. You don't have everything that you need, but you see a tiny light at the end of the tunnel. And you look at that light and you move yourself towards it and you compel it towards you. And the people in your life might be saying, like, Tracy, that light, it's a train headed towards you. Get the hell out of the tunnel. But you don't believe them. You just keep moving towards it. And you believe in yourself. You believe in that light. You believe in the outcome you're pursuing. You believe in the future you are creating. You believe that you are pulling tomorrow forward. And then when you reach that light and step through it, even though everyone told you you couldn't, that is where you become who you are. So we're this bizarre part of the population that when we're in momentum, we create momentum. When we're out of momentum and facing resistance, we turn it into momentum. Mm-hmm. And now those are the two healthier states for us. Now, the third one is the one we have to be really careful of. I call it being in full constraint. When you're in full constraint, it's that condition where you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel and you don't know your next steps. And you've lost the handle on that future you're creating and what it's going to look like. And you feel like you're stuck in place. And the same way that when we're in momentum, we are physiologically, cognitively, and chemically boosted, that happens when we're in constraint. When we're in constraint, almost immediately our bodies break down. We have words for this now. It's called chronic fatigue and Hashimoto's and Lyme disease and all these other things that people get diagnosed with. But when you look at a lot of those descriptions, what we're describing is an entrepreneur who's in full constraint, who doesn't see the future, who's not moving forward. It's interesting. I've actually worked with people who've had diagnoses like Hashimoto's or chronic fatigue or Lyme disease or any of those things that are kind of the chronic, like very difficult to diagnose syndromes. And when we get them into momentum, the symptoms start peeling away. Like, that's how powerful this change is, because when we're in full constraint, our bodies break down. So first, we really don't have the stamina. We're more tired. We feel frustrated. We feel suppressed. We feel in constraint. Second, cognitively, this is survival instinct 101. But when we're in constraint, when we feel pressure and noise, when you look at what happens in the fight or flight syndrome, it happens to us when we are in constraint. Our peripheral vision narrows, the options get much tighter, the future pulls closer. We can't really see the options that we're considering. We hear less, we smell less, we sense less. We don't have all of our faculties to make decisions, and that keeps us in constraint even longer. And then the third thing that happens, and it's a corollary to what happens when we're in momentum, but when we're in constraint, we feel the chemical depression of constraint. And so when you get to that place where you can't see a brighter future, where you don't know your next steps, when you're in that full constraint, full overwhelmed place, it exacerbates itself and we break down. And so for us as entrepreneurs, we need to do everything we can to stay out of that place of full constraint, to always make certain that we know the next few steps we are taking, that we're clear on what we're doing next, that we know our outcomes and we know where we're headed. That is what keeps us moving forward.
So that comes down to creating these habits that you talk about too, the habits and the planning and the goal setting and strategic thinking.
Yeah.
So let's because it's obvious that for an entrepreneur, getting into momentum and being able to stay there is like super important, because if you allow yourself to roll out of that and allow yourself to be in full constraint at any time, you've got to have some way of recognizing that you are there and then knowing, what do I need to do to get myself back into momentum, then stay there? What would be a couple of the things that you would recommend somebody does to get into momentum and then stay there? I mean, the biggest thing is, get Alex to help you with it, of course. But, aside from that, what could they do?
So we have content that we call the momentum equation. So we actually, when you look at periods of momentum in your life, there's always three things that are present. In fact, here's an exercise we take people through. We take people through the exercise of identifying different periods of momentum in your life. So identify a period of momentum. So for me, I'll share one of them with you. When I was 13 years old, I just got into high school. I was put into a course by accident called forensics. I thought it was going to be like a science course studying forensic, like, investigations, and it was actually a speech course. It was like getting up in front of the room and talking, which at the time I had ridiculous stage fright. I stuttered. I had a heart like I just stuttered, only it was way more pronounced. And I was panicked being in that course, and I intended to drop it because I was put into the course by accident. But the day the teacher walked in, this guy named Rick Lara, who has been one of my mentors for the last 34 years, is still my speech coach. When he walked in, I'm like, man, I can relate to this person. And this is unlike any classroom I've ever been in. And he doesn't talk like any other teacher I've ever found. And so my goal became, I'm going to make it through this course. And that opened a period of momentum in my life that was incredible. For the entire time I was in high school, I was in his classes. I never had a semester where I wasn't in one of his speech classes. By the time I graduated high school, I'd broken every record that we had at our school. There was a leader or a record board with 22 records on it. And the day I graduated, I had all of them. And a lot of them still stand. And I actually got lucky because some of the rules changed, so some of them will never go down. But that period of momentum was there because there was three things present in my life. One, I had a very clear outcome. I knew I wanted to survive that class. I knew I wanted to impress Rick. I knew I wanted to be better at that thing. So I had a clear outcome. Two, I had clear perspective. There was a scoreboard, literally a scoreboard in the class that told me whether I was doing well or not. But I also had the feedback from Rick. I had feedback from other students. I had, reviews, people telling me how I was doing. And then the third thing was I had clear accountability. I knew exactly what I was responsible for. Rick made it very clear what you needed to do. So for entrepreneurs to be in momentum, we need three things present in our lives. We need a clear outcome, something that we know exactly what we're pursuing and we know what our destination is. Second, clear scoreboards. We need perspective to know if we're approaching our destination. And third is clear accountability. We need to know what we're doing and the people around us are doing. I actually call that clear accountability or mutual contribution. We need to be contributing to someone and be getting contribution back. Sometimes, that might be reading a book. This is a contribution from this author to me, and I'm making a contribution to him by reading it. But we get that help, we get support, we get it somewhere. And so for people like us, I believe when we have a clear outcome, measurement in place, and we understand what our responsibilities are, that's when we get into protracted, long, effective periods of momentum. And I have this second part of my theory, the entrepreneurial personality type. I actually believe we're evolutionary hunters. When I look, I've done a tremendous amount of research of human beings. I've read a ton about successful people, and the study of successful people takes you down a lot of different rabbit holes. And one of those is like archaeological and historic around human evolution, and a lot around human evolution. And when I look at who we are today, we are that small percentage of the population that is willing to take the vulnerability and exposure it takes to make a business real. And there is tremendous vulnerability and exposure in that. And when I look at the evolution of human beings, I think we are that small percentage of the population that thousands of years ago used to get up every morning and take the vulnerability and exposure of going out and killing something to keep the human tribe alive. And so that the fact that we're evolutionary hunters, to me, it makes sense that we must be on the hunt. We need to know if we're approaching our prey. We need to know if we're moving forward. And, hunting is a team sport, especially how it was done evolutionarily with sticks and rocks and stuff. And so we need our tribe. And so when I look at us as evolutionary hunters, it's not necessarily achieving the goal. In fact, it's kind of weird what we do with goals. What's interesting is if you talk to any entrepreneur and you can get them into the right headspace of thinking about the last time they were about to achieve a goal, as we approach the finish line to a goal, it begins losing importance to us with the same speed that we are approaching the finish line. Tracy, would you agree with that?
Totally. Because you're there on the hunt for the next thing.
Well, and here's why I believe that is. There is millennia of epigenetic programming from the universe, from experience, from our lineage, saying that it's not about the kill, it's about getting back on the hunt. And so for us to stay in momentum, it doesn't matter how fast we're achieving the goal, it just means we're pursuing one fully and totally. And here's an interesting anecdote. We work with hundreds of business owners around the world. And one of the first things we get entrepreneurs to do is learn how to drink water. So we have high level programs where we show entrepreneurs the process, structure, and routine that it takes to build a company, recruit a team, have that team replace what you're doing, and then build an empire. We start with water. And often I'm asked, why do you start with water? It's such a juxtaposition that I'm getting into this business mastermind with this membership. And you're talking to me about doing this 10-day water challenge. Well, the reason we do that is there's a clear outcome. There's a clear perspective and scoreboard. There's clear accountability of what you need to do with the water. And if we can get somebody to do that for 10 days, their behavior everywhere else in their life will shift.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? But not only that, I had a doctor on the show a week or so ago, and water was also one of the things that he spoke about, to cure so many things in your life and just to energize your body, you need to fuel it with water. So I love that. I want to actually, I know that you've got a challenge and you've got some a freebie that you give away in relation to water. Where can people go to jump on that challenge and to actually start drinking water?
So it's called the 10-day natural thirst challenge. And if you go to getthirstynow.com, you'll be able to sign up, and it's absolutely free. We've had tens of thousands of people take it. And it's basically 3 simple rules that will help you drink more water. But here's what's really happening as you go through it. I want to let you inside of what we're trying to do. What we're doing as a company is we're showing you that if you set a clear outcome and you have simple rules to apply it so you understand what you're doing, and then you have a scoreboard like counting down 10 days, it will create momentum in what you're doing, drinking water, but that momentum will spill over into other areas of your life. It's crazy, Tracy. I get messages from people saying, I took the 10-day natural thirst challenge. Day 3 was really hard because I drink a lot of coffee. I had a headache that day. By day 4, it had gone away. By day 5, I felt massive energy. By day 10, I had written my book. And I can't believe I only did it in 4 days. And, we get crazy outcomes because when you allow for momentum anywhere and you create the conditions that you draw it into your life, my belief is the universe just keeps giving you more.
Absolutely. Look, Alex, I would want to hang on this line and just keep talking with you for hours and hours and hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. And I know we are coming up to to half an hour. So I just want to make sure that you're still okay. And I want to make sure that we give our audience a couple of places that they can go to get more of you, because I know that after they've listened and watched today's show, they're going to want to get more. And if you're not feeling that way, let me tell you, you want to go and get more of what Alex is talking about, because like I said at the beginning of the show, just some basic things that he spoke about on stage, and it was like a 2-hour session, changed my business and changed my life. And I want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to do that too. And if you get an opportunity to work with Alex and his team on a more personal basis, then you absolutely should go and do that too, because you will gain massive momentum and you will be able to stay there. So let's tell people where they can go. The first place I want to tell them is about the podcast. So we'll just pop that up on the screen, guys. Head on over to momentumpodcast.com. That is where you can get, you can tune into Alex on a regular basis and make sure that you keep up to date with what it is that he's talking about. And I'll hand over to Alex for a second and just let him talk a little bit more about the Momentum Podcast and what you can expect there.
Sounds good, Tracy. And I have a couple minutes. Before we get off, I want you to tell me how what I said. What was it that I said from stage that changed the trajectory of your business? Like, I think everybody wants to hear that.
I know, it's so funny. Hey, open loop. I'll
okay. So yeah, you can't open loop with me. I'm an evolutionary hunter. I'll close this here. So
yeah, I will tell you. I'll close it.
So the Momentum Podcast, here was the goal behind the Momentum Podcast. I have discussions with entrepreneurs all the time on my team, in our memberships, and a lot of those discussions are about solving a problem or solving an issue or shifting perspective or having a different mindset. But, you know, I see one of the strengths I have as a coach and one of the strengths I have as a content provider is I have a different lens for how problems should be solved, because I've never been the goal setting expert. I've always been an execution expert. Like, this is how we get things done, not how we think about them and get excited about them and get motivated. I've always been this is rubber meets the road. This is how it happens. And so the Momentum Podcast, there's about 600 episodes, a little over 600. It's been downloaded about 2.4 million times internationally, which is amazing. There's 860 something thousand podcasts in the world, and we're in the top 1,000, which I just found that out in the past month, which we were so excited about. Well, thank you. I mean, we were a little surprised and really pleasantly surprised. And so the podcast episodes, most of them, except for one or two, are somewhere in between about 10 and 20 minutes, and they solve a single problem. There is a couple of podcast episodes. One's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's a podcast that I did with a friend of mine that we got so much positive feedback on. I released it on the Momentum Podcast. But if you scroll through, you're going to see that it's quick episodes, solve a problem, really easy to tactically apply, and it will help you solve issues in your life. So if you have any issue in your business right now around process, structure, and routine, or a place that you're stuck, you can go to my website and go to charfen.com/podcast. And there's a search engine there where if you type in your problem, chances are we're going to have at least one episode, if not a few, that will help you solve it.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, guys, take Alex up on that offer. And the other is, I know you've got this free giveaway also on your website and charfen.com, which is the Billionaire Code.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, man, the Billionaire Code has been such an amazing framework for us. So, really got pulled together probably 3 or 4 years ago. And it came from the work that I did on the entrepreneurial personality type book. In this book, there's a chapter called The Entrepreneurial Life of Questions, which is the 9 underlying questions that I feel we go throughout our lives. Like, these are the base level questions we're answering. Well, those 9 questions built into a framework called the Billionaire Code. And the place that I got those questions was by reading from about successful people over and over again. I saw these definitive shifts in their life. Well, first, I got the questions, and that kind of downloaded. And then as I considered them, I started seeing they actually were the path to entrepreneurial success. In the Billionaire Code is 9 levels of what we need to achieve in order to go from 0 to 40,000, 40 to 100, 100 to 300, all the way up to $100 million. And Tracy, I knew we were onto something when I shared this information at a Genius Network meeting years ago with Joe Polish. And Robin Sharma asked me to fly to Switzerland and share it with his group. And it was one of the first times I was sharing it in front of a large audience. And I'm like, this is brand new content. I can't wait to get feedback on what we missed. And so I went through the entire framework, and everybody just stood up and started clapping. There was no feedback at all. It was just accepted as truth. And so what's happened over the course of the last 3 or 4 years is we've actually built our entire company around the Billionaire Code. We coach to it. So if one of our coaches is talking to somebody, they pull it up, they determine where the person is. It shows us what they need to do next, what they should be focused on now, and very importantly, what they might have missed. And then we also built our products around it. So our membership levels are for early areas of the Billionaire Code, kind of mid-level. And then once you're starting to build out departments and a leadership team. And so if you go to billionairecode.com, you can answer a few questions from my team. We will get your survey results. You'll be able to download a full copy of the Matrix, our ebook called Billionaire Code Decoded. And you can sign up for a call to talk to one of my team members.
Beautiful. And again, I can't speak highly enough of what Alex does, because I am honestly telling you that the things that he talks about and the things that he does with his team will also change your business. So let me put you and Alex out of your misery. Let me tell you about the experience I had and where this change happened for me. So I'm going to take you guys back a couple of years. So a couple of years ago, I had made a decision to join a high-level coaching program, which required me to travel from Australia over to the United States on a regular basis. This particular conference that I went to, Alex was one of the keynote speakers. And if I remember rightly, in this particular session, he spoke for about 2 hours. Part of his, and I remember vividly sitting in the audience and just listening intently, because like Alex said, everybody in the crowd, stood up and clapped when he presented at a previous one. Everybody in this crowd was glued to what Alex was talking about, as was I. And as I'm sitting, and then he's talking about EPT, the entrepreneurial personality type, and talking about how you grow your business and just all the things that you need to do to get yourself into momentum and prepare yourself for massive growth in the future. The cogs were ticking in my head, and I was reflecting on my business and my life, not my personal life, but my business life. I was reflecting on that and reflecting on, what had I built? What was going on? Was I in momentum? Was I feeling like what I had created, was it what I wanted in the future? So I was doing exactly what Alex was talking about, going into that future, pulling that future forward and going, putting that mirror up and going, is that what I want? Is that really what I want to do? And at that moment, I had the oh shit moment.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I've got a problem. And I identified what that problem was. And the problem was, I had about 6 months prior, I'd done a bit of a shift in my business, and I thought, do you know what I need? I've got to a point where I'm like capped out. I don't want to be doing some of these pieces of my business. What I should do is, I probably need a business partner. So this was going around in my head, and it just so happened that a person was then brought into, let's just say, re-emerged in my life at that particular time. And anyway, we had a couple of conversations. He was looking at doing something a little bit different, and it seemed at the time like we were a good match. And on paper, we were. Like on paper, if I was looking at, hey, this is the gap in my business, this is what I don't particularly enjoy doing, this person's got this skill set that would be able to fill that gap. So we went down the path of creating a partnership. And as I'm sitting in the audience, I'm thinking to myself, and I think that the moment was, you were talking about alignment and values, and making sure that you actually you're on the same page, that you, and have you got a business partner in your world, you want to make sure that you are on the same page and you have the same set of values and you are moving towards you want the same things. And at that time, as much as I loved this person and he was fantastic at what he did, it was very apparent to me we were not in alignment from a values point of view, nor were we in alignment with where we wanted to go. And so what I was finding myself in was that resistance. I was in constant resistance because I was trying to constantly get in momentum, the evolutionary hunter who wants to keep moving forward. And he would constantly be saying, whoa, 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 hang on a minute, we've got a plan, like you were talking about, get into momentum and not be goal setting and planning and sort of stuck in that space, but actually in momentum and putting the rubber where meeting the road and actually doing implementation. I was so far down that path, and my business partner just wasn't. He was still in the space of wanting to plan, coming from an accounting background, make sure that everything was lined up, ducks in order, which meant that I was constantly being pulled out of momentum on a regular basis. I came back to Australia, and the very first conversation I had when I got back to my office was, I said, I need to have a conversation with you. And I knew that things weren't right, but I knew if I did not have that conversation, it was never going to happen. So I called him in and just had a really honest conversation and said, look, it's not working, not happening. This, we can do something about this now. And this was in very early stages of this partnership. So I knew I could have been, Tracy that just kept the peace and just made sure everything was all okay, or I could have had a hard discussion and actually bring it to the forefront, have the discussion and be able to move forward. That's what I did. And as a result of that, everything changed. I went on a massive, packed my husband up, resized our business, moved out of our business premises, went to America for 9 weeks, traveled around there, took a client with me, went on a cruise, did a whole lot of masterminding with people, came back to Australia, and my business has really, it's improved from both a personal and a business perspective, but also from a financial perspective. So that was just one conversation with you. It wasn't even a one-on-one personal conversation, but it was, because the way in which you created that conversation, I felt like you were speaking to me, and it enabled me to go away and take action and implement what I knew I had to do. So there you go. So thank you very much. I would not be in the momentum that I'm in right now had I not made that decision, and had I not been in that room on that day.
That's awesome, Tracy. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredibly validating. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'm as responsible for as many partnerships forming as partnerships dissolving, because of the types of conversations that I have, and sometimes it goes in one direction and other times it goes in others. But like that compatibility, as far as how you're looking at the business and what you want, if there's a partnership where the compatibility is off, or where the vision for what you're trying to do is off, you're literally just going in each day to tear each other apart. Yep. And that's what it feels like. Whether you voice that feeling or not, it psychically and internally and energetically feels like you're just being broken down. So I'm excited that you made that decision. That's awesome.
Thank you. I mean, I think that's a good thing. Like you say, I'm responsible for people making decisions to separate as partnerships. That is a really good thing, and it's empowering, but it's also, it's nerve-wracking, and it's a bold thing to do, to go in and have a conversation like that. But you must have it, because if you're feeling like that, it's not going to get any better. If you're not in alignment, you're not on the same pathway, you are just going to continue to create that sense of resistance day in, day out, and you'll end up resenting one another. So I'm pleased to say that, we parted ways, but in a really nice way. He's a great guy. We're good, we're good friends. I'd still do anything for him. He'd do anything for me. We just weren't good. It just wasn't the right alignment from a partnership point of view. So, yeah, there's a nice way to do it. You can wait till it gets really, really bad, and you have that old crap moment and you never talk to one another again. Or you can do it really civilly and like adults, like, good business people would, and part ways on good terms.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But look, that would not have happened had I not been in that room, had I not heard you talk about that, and had you not taken the time to put all of that material together. So I know in your book, you talk about the fact that your mission is to have a great contribution. Yeah. I believe you're doing that, and that's why your podcast is doing so well, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because not only do I know that you're making a big contribution, I want to make a big contribution too, and the way in which I can do that is to allow more and more people to hear more of Alex Charfen. So thank you so much for being with me today. It's always a pleasure. I'm truly blessed and grateful for your time, because I know it's super precious, and you get asked a lot of time to jump on shows and things. So I appreciate you a lot.
Well, Tracy, I've truly enjoyed this, and we'll see how this is received, and maybe we'll come back and do a round 2 sometime in the future. And I had a tremendous amount of fun. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, there you go, guys. I'm on the hunt now. He said he'll be back at some point in the new year, so I'm going to hold him to that. So I would love to have you back. But look, I want to say thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much to all of our viewers for watching. I'll be back again. You can watch the Unlock Show with Tracy Wilson. I go live twice a week. Wednesdays, I have a guest with me. On Fridays, I am going solo, so I'm about to roll out of this into another live show very, very shortly. And I look forward to seeing you back again sometime soon, Alex. And for those of you who are watching, who are not inside of the Success Secrets for Business, Family and Life group, where are you? Get yourself on over to Facebook and join our group so that you can watch more of these shows and multiple other shows that we have going on a regular basis. So have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.